wanted to play with it more. I took some time to explore it on the side. It seemed very promising, and there was a lot of things that were broken. That all said, it's definitely in a state where we can play and have some fun. And I haven't coded live for way too long, and I figured what better than some tech I kind of know how to use, since I've had a bad streak recently of playing with things I don't know how to use and bombing as a result. So yo, howdy Darren, howdy everyone who came early. This stream should start picking up. It usually takes about 20 or 30 minutes for the viewership to bump. I'm gonna chill with y'all for another 10 or so before I start coding. What y'all been working on? I know that got a lot of fun engineers here. Any of you guys coming from the Primogen? I just figure out how his name's supposed to be pronounced. The Prime stream from earlier. I know a lot of you guys were in chat. Ooh, I just saw from Darren, quick question, should sessions be separate from actual users? Great question. Generally, use sessions should represent things that you're cool with storing in a cookie and being stale-ish. Like, use session gives you back the data that is there with a validation of if it's accurate or not. And actually, I'm going to scratch everything I just said. I don't like that framing. Use session and sessions should represent the most minimal subset of a user. Usually, I believe that is their ID. At Ping, for example, we have their ID, but we also have their name and their platform, so we can quickly embed their name and like the icon for Twitch, Twitter, or Google, depending on which platform they have. But everything else we fetch through our DB. We have a get user by ID TRPC endpoint that we like trpc.use query get user by ID and drop the user ID in there. For getting self, it feels a little extra, but we usually have a separate get self endpoint that returns even more data. Generally, I like to think of user as two states, roughly, for self, I should say. I like to think of self as two states. There is the authentication state, which should be a minimal subset, like the user ID and if it's valid or not. And then the greater, like, superset of additional things that are unique to a user that you might not want to expose, which would be things like, what's it called? Things like the user's billing information that you would only want that user to be able to fetch for themselves. You should probably tier things out more than that. And I think solutions like GraphQL lend themselves really nicely to how these things get split up. But when I hear the problem of should sessions be separate from actual users, it sounds like you're running into the like data separation problem for the first time. And at that point, my suggestion would be all or have a minimal subset that is the session and a greater superset that is self. And then users are users, handle that separately. Any more questions? Seems like things are starting to pick up. We're getting viewership. Broke 15 on Twitch already. That was super quick. I've been working on some annoying things lately. I've been porting over the entire chat server at Ping. We've been using Pusher for a while, and it's good overall. Its presence was lackluster at best, though, so we're exploring ably. It's been a really good exploration so far, and I think that it's going to help solve a handful of the problems we're running into, but to be determined how much we buy into that. On the video state management side, we're also currently, well, I should say we, it's mostly Mark, is exploring alternative state solutions. I have a really nasty context that I built to keep track of like the call state, who's in it, who's where, what the states of like their audio devices and things are. It's nasty. We're probably going to move that all over to XState. We're seeing what that's going to look like and playing around with it. But it's been really fun for us to explore. Reading your message, Darren. That makes sense. Users can potentially also have more than one session, so keeping the two distinctly sounds more ideal. Also, no need to overfetch an entire user with use session. Yep. Use session shouldn't be doing much fetching. It should mostly be doing validation. Ideally, use session is giving you a minimal, this user is this user. This ID does correctly map to this person. And from there, you can do whatever. Maybe you also like return a tier or something, but even then, generally, I try to keep stuff out of session when I'm able. Do we have profile pic in session right now? I'm not actually sure. We might have profile picture in session. If we do, I'm probably going to move that out. Thank you for bringing that up. Realizing I should set up like a way to have chat stay visible for longer and not auto clear it so quickly, because sometimes I'll be talking to a message for longer than it's visible for. I did make it possible to, on my Stream Deck, hide and show things pretty like immediately. Relatively pumped about it. It's way simpler than my setup used to be. I was trying to go live at 2 actually, and I was sitting here at like 1 p.m. getting things ready and realized I had wanted to redo my OBS for a while, and I did it. And then it was like 2:45 and everything was done, but I wanted music for the intro this week. So I went and started setting that up, and it took way longer than I expected. And here we are. Live at my usual, plus or minus 15. Not too bad, all things considered. Trying to think, ooh, we could do like recent like news in the programming world. I know that Ryan does that every week, and that tends to go pretty well for him. Let's try that actually. Let me quickly... I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do this without like just my Twitter and all my DMs and things being incredibly visible. I might have to incognito window this. Should be easier to do this. Cool, this works. Yeah, this is fine. We'll do it this way. Cool. Yellow. Gonna go over this week in React because it's really good, and shout out to Sebastian. He's been killing it for a while. Oh yeah, Adam definitely pinged me about the Web Dev Wednesday workflow. I could definitely improve things in ways that would make both of our lives easier, and I am happy to do that. Yeah, so this week in React had a bunch of fun things. One of the controversial ones, I had a few people hit me up about this one. I'll open up the blog post. So, in React's types, children has been built in for a while. So if you define a react.fc, it has children. Do I just do this in code? Yeah, I'm just going to want to do this in code. Who am I kidding? Oh, this is not code that y'all should see. I'm going to quickly make sure I don't have that open anywhere else. Oh, this one's not too big a deal. I will not be at React Render, sadly. I'll be doing more programming conferences like later on, but right now I'm way too busy and focused on like the creator world stuff. Frankly, like it's sad to say this so like straightforwardly, but there isn't much value I can get out of going to a programming conference right now other than like what I'd be doing here, but with more cool people around. As awesome and fun as that would be for me, it doesn't really help benefit the company in any meaningful way at the moment. I will be at VidCon this year, and I'll be doing other conferences more in the content creator space, but I can't really justify going to a software development focused conference at the moment. I do actually have a few cool invites to speak at a few, so I might do that, but it's unlikely I'll just be showing up as a guest to conferences for fun, like anytime soon, sadly. Thoughts on Svelte? Can I put the thoughts on Svelte on hold? I'll go do a rant on it after. I really like Rich Harris. Rich Harris is an awesome dude, and he's making really cool things happen, and Svelte is one of them, but overall, not the biggest fan of Svelte personally. Okay, need to select the language. I used to know the hotkey for this. TypeScript React. So let's say we have a component. So const, so we'll do app. Return div. Okay, cool. Here's our app. Pretty common to do. Oh, I need to be in a project for React.fc to exist. What projects that use React do I have here that aren't too bad to share? Image gen. Yeah, image gen is fine. I will. Okay, cool. This will work. Because this will have React. Yep, rad. So we have react.fc is a div. We'll just hello world it in here. So let's say we have a subcomponent. We'll call it banner. banner takes a prop string or title string. And in here, we render an h2 with title. I'll move this down just to keep ordering simpler. So what's interesting about this case, I'll also make it a little bigger, is right now, banner is a component. It is effectively just calling this function, and it needs a title, which is why it's erroring. So we'll title equals title. And this is now valid. This is a subcomponent banner that we return a title from that is passed as a prop. What if I wanted to add a button to this? Let's just say I want button log out. Quick guesses as to what happens here. Anybody in chat want to guess? Where does button get rendered? No guesses? Where does the button go? Latency's not that bad, guys. It's like 8 seconds. Yep. I don't have a children prop, but React.fc infers a children prop. So I can pass it a child right now, and this expects a child, but the child isn't being used for anything. So this button doesn't exist. I wrote this code and I put this here, and it doesn't do anything. And by default, every React.fc expects children, even if it doesn't use them. The frustrating part here is that it means the React FC definition is unclear as to when you use it, whether or not the thing that you are using it for and defining with it actually can use the child or not. It's almost like breaking the TypeScript rules in that way, where everything has this property you can pass and you don't know if it's going to use it on the other side or not. So the proposed change would be to wrap this with react.props with children instead. And now this tells React's type definitions that this also has children react.react node. You could also add this type manually if you want, which I actually really like, because you might not always want it to just be children. You might want it somewhere else. So I could do children react node, but I could also do like footer react.react node as well. Turn on brightness for my sake. The cool part of doing it this way is you can still have children work the way they traditionally do in React, but you're able to mentally see, oh, all children is a React node. I can pass other React nodes. I've had a lot of pretty talented developers confused as to how they could create a component that takes other components effectively in JSX as properties. Now that you kind of have to do this, it shows it to you. This is a big thing that was underneath React that we didn't see that would cause confusion, and I'm actually very happy with the change here. I haven't read this article yet, so I am curious. Implicit children. Yeah. Yeah, so this was somebody messaged me asking, or with this change, suspicious that I would dislike it because I'm known for being a big advocate of inference and like having inferred definitions be your source of truth wherever possible. The reason I do like this is that this wasn't previously inference. There wasn't an inferred child on every component. There was an implied child on every component, whether or not you were using it. That wasn't inferred from the use, that was implied by the type, and it was implied incorrectly by default. Now you have to define that, which makes it much safer overall. while implicit children are definitely nice to quickly type out a component, they also hide a variety of bugs. Better errors for narrower children. Yeah, this is really nice too. You can be specific if you want a child to be a specific thing. So here it's, I want a React element, but this is not passing a React element, this is passing a string. Oh yeah, I can share links to all this. I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do that. What's the hotkey to show the URL bar? That's that one. Solverfox.dev, solverfox.dev. Oh, I can copy paste between things now. I forgot I have this power. Cool. That should hopefully come through on both chats. It does. Rad. My setup is so much better now. I should have done this forever ago. Shout out to Restream. I don't like your studio stuff because OBS is a phenomenal piece of software, but everything else you guys are doing is dope and really appreciate it over here. Anyways, yeah, better errors for narrower children was the part we were just talking about. Allows removal of empty. I forgot that. Yeah. There are a lot of things that React Node is like compatible with type-wise, including empty object, which is not a very good valid child. It's not something you should be passing. But now we can define React Node without object, and it takes in things that should be rendered instead of things that should be run, which is really nice. I hated this pattern so much, where you would write out like a function inline with its own that would like infer types off of the parent's like children def or not. Just sometimes would be a provider that arbitrarily calls the first child with new shit and then write a function in there that then returns more additional shit. I am so happy that this makes it way easier to kill all of these bad patterns. It's really nice. Yeah. No more implicit children React-FC, which also means that React Node can be changed to be useful again. Does he have? This is just him linking this article. Yeah, totally agree. Great change. Really pumped this is happening. Finally. What's next? Server-side rendering with Astro. Really cool that Astro got a shout out, even though this is a React thing, because Astro is able to render things with React. Pretty cool. React admin. This was, I also just remembered I haven't tweeted that I'm live yet because I'm a moron. So brief hold as I remember to do that and go do it. I don't have a live emoji. YOLO, doing it here. Live now. HTTPS twitch.tv Theo. Cool. Sorry about the delay there. Anyways, React admin, build your own framework. Refactors React code of a simple UI from 90 lines to 20. Did I remember looking at this? Let's see. Very interesting. Use get one and use update. Very interesting. Their site loads and runs like shit. I just hit back and it broke entirely. Now I can't go to the article anymore. Cool. What are these guys using? Gatsby. I have lost all trust for anything they have to say. Next. I don't remember if that was who I thought it was. This is a cool article. People memorize too much, generally. Nice to have more people talking about it and giving examples of proof that you're probably memoizing too much. Good article. Don't want to dive too deep into it. That'll just become a long React state rant otherwise. Feedback on integrating existing Rust logic into a React app. WASM binding and bridge cost. Yeah, the WASM binding has been historically really rough. I haven't seen anybody who's made something really compelling there. WASM bind gen's in an okay place, but it's like multiple megs have to be shipped in order to even run it. So we got a long ways to go there. How to create and export web components from a React application. Cool. Redwood Startup Fund. This was actually really cool. I want to rant a bit about this because this was dope. So for those that don't know, Redwood is a newer, really cool framework. The goal of Redwood is to come in with good assumptions and defaults to allow you to move quickly while taking advantage of modern technologies and the benefits they bring. So it's similar to Blitz.js in the it does everything mindset, but its pieces are a little more abstracted by default. So it comes with Prisma, with a pretty default Prisma config. It comes with Webpack, it comes with all that. It's very SSR focused, but the layer between the back and the front isn't just JSON or endpoints. You, similar funnily enough to Gatsby, define a GraphQL layer between the backend and the front end. The main benefit there is that your backend can now be consumed by non-TypeScript clients with ease and share the definitions from that GraphQL generated on things like a Swift app or a Kotlin app or a native Windows app that have GraphQL clients. You can now share the server across them. I would argue that a startup should not be building clients that don't have proper overlap in technologies with their main product. You should not be investing early in what makes it easiest to hire a Swift engineer. Personally, I believe. That said, this seems like a way to get a lot of the TRPC wins without being fully tied to TypeScript on top, which I could see why it's beneficial to a lot of people. It lets you divert a decision without compromising the experience too hard. And yeah, really cool in that regard. I'm planning on talking with the Redwood guys more and playing with the framework. Haven't had a chance to really dive in on it just yet. It feels like there's a lot more of these meta frameworks, I should say, where Next wraps React and then Blitz wraps Next. I feel like there's more and more of these pre-assembled frameworks that have lots of other pieces and give you a pre-made assembly of it. Not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm saying it's an interesting thing that I want to think more on and play with before I recommend it. But at the same time, I'm seeing more and more where people want boilerplates that have the T3 stack baked in. Yeah. Lots to think about. Really cool. Anyways, Redwood Startup Fund. Since Redwood is so heavily focused on startups, I even think in their website, they call it the framework for startups. Redwood is not a CMS type thing. Redwood is very much like a Next.js or Blitz.js competitor to an extent that is focused on building full stack React applications with the GraphQL backend. Gareth, I will gladly say things are bad. The difference is, have I played with it enough to have an opinion on it yet? I have not played enough to have an opinion on this yet. I just think it's an interesting trend, and I'm observing the trend. I will crap on other things later today, I am sure. But yeah, the cool thing with the Redwood Startup Fund is the focus on funding startups that are using Redwood. The interesting part of the strategy here that excites me is the tech that a startup bets on is very valuable, especially in the sense that how do I put this? The tech that you bet on isn't just valuable in how good it makes the product or how happy it makes the engineers. It's super valuable in how well it allows you to pivot if things don't work the way you expect or one part of your product is more popular than you thought. The pivotability of a company, especially early on, is one of the most essential like pieces of whether or not a company succeeds, because nobody gets it right the first time. That's something I've certainly learned, and many others that have told me loudly in the space. You don't get it right the first time. But if your tech makes it too hard to move to the next thing, you're dead in the water. And if you have to do that 2 or 3 times, your engineers get super demotivated. Yourself as like the founder, especially if you're also one of the engineers, could get really demotivated. Redwood believes their tech is good enough to put money down on companies that choose to use it, which is really interesting, both because for a company to know about Redwood and to know about this fund, they have to be pretty deep in the technical circle, so they have to kind of know what they're doing enough to get this far. And on top of that, by betting on Redwood, they've now opened themselves up for massive pivotability if things don't go right. It's a really safe bet for an investor in the sense that even if this company is entirely doing the wrong thing, they have the ability to fix that. And that's a really cool reason to do a fund. I know I've spent way too much time talking to investors and funds over the last few weeks, months, honestly. And this is one of the coolest fund ideas I've seen. The confidence it takes to do something like this, but the thought and reason behind it is really cool. So props to the Redwood guys and props to the new Redwood Startup Fund and everybody involved. This is a really cool idea, and I would love to see more companies doing things like this. Cool. Back to here. Fred just mentioned that Tom already does a lot of angel investing, so this was a win-win for him. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Next, React component composition. How to get it right. I don't know if I read this one. How to get it right. What was this again? This is like building components with children and other things. It actually complements the type definition really well in the sense that it is about structuring components to allow like good composition of them by other developers and people in the future. Pretty cool little article. I have a lot of opinions, and this doesn't seem to contradict them, which is cool to see. Yeah, this actually, from my brief skim, looks really cool if you're looking for more thoughts on how to structure your React components. Good article, definitely worth a look. Test component interactions with Storybook. I'm not the biggest Storybook fan. I prefer dev environments that are so simple to work in and flexible that as a developer, I am able to, how do I put it? Like, the main value of Storybook is it lets you get to a component really quickly and have them all laid out next to each other with the ability to change their states there. I find that it encourages developers to work outside of the code base and outside of the product when they're working on pieces. And that causes lots of weird behaviors around how things interop when the developer's spending more time in a list of the parts of the app than they are in the app itself. I find that when people are asking for Storybook, the biggest reason why, in my experience, has been a desire to not use the app during development. I know that there's plenty of other very valid reasons, and I would imagine the Storybook team would be disgusted if they had heard some of the reasons I have heard for why people want to adopt Storybook. But I'm hesitant. I could see why my design team, once we have a design team, would be interested in doing something like this. I know at Twitch we had a really powerful like internal design system that the designers spent most of their time in, and it makes sense at that point. But everyday developers building applications ideally shouldn't be spending much time in Storybook, which is why adding full component testing to Storybook is so scary to me. Next, yet another article on how to reduce your next bundle size. Share that Fred is sitting here grinning very slightly as this has become like the flavor of the year. How do we make our next app smaller? Feels like every time we switch to the new way of doing React, it works great because you started a new React project. And then as that new React project gets too big, you find new ways to trim it down and eventually give up, start another React project with whatever the new flavor of the year is, probably Remix coming soon. And then when that gets too big, you look on how to trim your Remix bundle size. You know what? I'll put money on it. By this time next year, we will be seeing multiple articles just like this that are how to easily reduce your Remix bundle size. I'll put money on it. Anybody want to take that bet? No? Step 4, migrate to Astro. There you are, Fred. Next part of the stream, don't worry. React 18, quick core concepts. Yeah, there's some cool stuff in here, especially if you aren't as familiar with like the transitions and concurrent stuff. Like automatic batching, we don't have to think too much about it. It's really cool. Like reading over it, knowing that that exists is cool. But understanding transitions is really powerful. I think that the transitions will be used a lot more, especially with the new concurrent stuff. Suspense and strict mode are... We've talked a lot about those. I don't know how much I would be shipping suspense right now. It's been fun to play with, but breaks a lot. Yeah, that's an option. It's there if you're interested. This is one of the coolest announcements. The TypeScript 4.7 beta. This one is very exciting because we get export types finally. You can now type what exports come out of files much more reliably, which allows us to do crazy things like config variables that do things with type safety. And much smarter people than me are going to use these tools to make our experience using TypeScript packages way better. I've already heard both TK over at React as well as Alex for TRPC talking about how excited they are to deprecate all older versions of TypeScript and mainline 4.7 in modern versions. So you have to be on the latest TypeScript in order to use the latest React Query and TRPC. Probably a good call. I haven't had too many issues upgrading TypeScript versions, and I definitely recommend trying to stay up to date if you can. Another one that I was really excited about, Rome Formatter. Prettier is dope. Prettier is slow. Prettier is in JavaScript, and probably shouldn't be. This is a Rust-based code formatter. It'll be cool to have my code format faster. Prettier is too big for what we need it to do, in my opinion. It's great, and it does a lot. And it was such an essential piece in the creation of modern dev tools flows. I would even make the argument that Prettier is the reason we started caring so much about generic editor plugins and like code servers. I would bet that like TSC and that like TypeScript server wouldn't be as common a pattern and wouldn't be as expected and normal in our minds if it wasn't for Prettier normalizing the idea of your editor aggressively formatting shit for you. Hot take, but I'm feeling a lot of people will agree. Anyways, JavaScript is testing best practices. Cool. And that was it. Really cool stuff. I enjoyed this week a lot. Good news. Fun things. React 18 is here. React 18 is frustrating and exciting a lot of people. I cannot wait to see how things progress. Any other big news that wasn't in here that I should be covering? I'm going to make a habit of putting these things in a bookmark and doing this at the beginning of my streams in the future, just so we have it. But this time I did not do that. So please tell me if there is anything important that I have not touched on yet. Going once. Going twice. Code stream. Code stream. Cool. Time to start building. First things first, open up Chrome, terminal. Read the docs. Oh, I should discuss what I want to do first. That would be valuable, probably. So I like generating images on servers. It's fun. There's a lot of reasons you might want to generate an image. I have a really stupid one right now. In my kitchen, we have an old display unit for a Turtle Beach headset that my roommate was gifted or stole, unclear, from a GameStop. We're using this to display our metrics on the fridge. The problem is, every metrics website that we're using has expectations around the JavaScript it runs that cannot reasonably be met by a 12-year-old tablet that was out of date at the time. As such, we could not get it to open the web pages for any of the metrics platforms we're using. I had a very clever solution, though. We ran it on the server and generated an image. I was able to do this in Next.js pretty quick, but I realized as I was doing it, I really just need the ability to run this on the server and cache it. I don't need the rest of Next here. In fact, it's almost in the way. I just want an endpoint that returns an image with a cache header. And I also want I want the cache header on an image. And I guess I would like to have a page that renders that image. From there, we can maybe configure it with query params and stuff like that. Oh, we could even use the Twitch API to fetch some stuff, make a metadata service. Let's do that. Better Twitch metadata. That'll be fun. Cool. Trying to think. Best way to start, probably just astro.new. That's a npm init. Oh, this runs in the folder you're in, if I recall. So I'm going to make a new directory first. I'll make this bigger so it's a little easier to see. I'm also going to tmux because I don't like having everything in one place. Cool. Make dir astro gen image gen. Now we will init. Starter kit. We will probably not need any of these. I will continue. cd. Oh, we're already in it. So npm install. And then it's just npm run dev. Cool. I also want to get this on GitHub because I want to get this deploying on Vercel like ASAP. Astro image gen. I'll make this public. Yoink. Yoink. Cool. And then Vercel. This will probably have things I don't want to share with the world, so let me just make the new project first. New project. Cool. Fair point with my Twitch and Twitter logo. I am going to just hide those for now until I find a better place for them. Cool. We don't need those. Y'all know who I am. Add them in post. Framework. Thought we had Astro in here. I don't know why I thought that. Probably because Vite got added. YOLO, see if it deploys. Probably won't. Honestly, probably just going to go straight to the SSR section. Not expecting this to build because I haven't set any directories or anything yet. I don't even remember where to set them. Astro Vercel. Deploy a website. This will be helpful. Vercel. Update output directory to dist. That makes sense. Cool. Change build output dist. See if attempt 2 works. Why did this one fail? Hey, Fred, I had this problem earlier too. The default config is not accurate anymore for the main template. I don't need this open anymore. That's code in here. There was something I had to do to get this to stop being annoying too. I'm trying to remember what it was. I was dealing with this with another Astro project I was playing with. Yeah, Astro SSR. What did I do in here? Oh, I remember what it was. It's because there was no TypeScript file in the project. So this complains because there's no file named .ts. So nothing.ts for now. Export const. Cool. Does it stop that from complaining? No, because it needs include and exclude. Can I do a pass on your default? There's a better TS config. Okay. I need a better way to get URLs onto my Mac from here. Oh, I can copy paste it because of synergy. That works. Yay. Can this be the new default? This should be the new default. Got that fixed. Also in here, I can just delete things, I'm assuming, right? Hopefully. Fix TypeScript issues. Hopefully that will do it. Build. No, already exists. Deployments. Legacy config detected. npm run build. The default example on the default init is currently broken, Fred. I'm using the Poimanders theme, Poimandres. This guy. Probably have like a chat command for that. Should at least check that your default examples build every once in a while. It would be nice. No, it's a big launch. But with a big launch comes a lot of people doing the init and then not being able to build the init. Like, what is this, Flutter? Cool. It's built. astroimagegen.vercel.app. Now, I actually do need these open for the SSR parts. So, import netlify. Well, I don't have a command yet, Ian. Sorry. I will add commands for things like that someday. Still learning how to stream. Funny enough. Cool. All the examples in here are Netlify. We're not using Netlify. I had to use Netlify last time I tried setting this up because the Vercel bindings weren't working. Hopefully they will this time. Cool. And in here, I can just yoink this. No, I can't because the plus is going to come through. It's not in a different column, so I can't just copy paste this. Fred. Fred. Cool. Let's run build, make sure it all still works. It does not. No slash functions on. Oh. Good catch, my bad. I remember running into this one before. It's like a weird VS Code theme is leaking through somehow. Can go look and see what this is getting pulled in via. Shiki requires it, which is required by Node Modules Astro, it looks like. Yeah, it requires 2 VS Code things. Well, this is what you have me for, Fred. I'm going to run into every single bug for you twice. It's my specialty. Yeah. I'm going to ignore that. You can figure out what that is whenever you feel like. Why does it have a WASM path? That's going to stress me out. We're going to continue ignoring it. Git status. Add SSR. The easiest way to test SSR. God, I hate Copilot when I'm trying to enter a string sometimes. Math. Cool. I don't have it running. Cool. That's SSRing locally. Git commit add random title gen for SSR test. Actually, when I have you here, Fred, random question, something I was thinking of. When moving to SSR, how do I distinguish between static and SSR? Because it seems like it just, when you add one of those adapters, it goes from generating this once at build to just generating it whenever you call it. Is static now just a cache setting? Like, what's the relationship there? That's a good sign. Got more for you, Fred. Let's see what else this needs that I forgot. Probably this guy. I might have to redefine the term beta for us as developers. For me, beta means it starts, but you don't know when it will stop. Right now, I don't know when it will start. I missed the button. Redeploy. Okay, I did have this working on another Astro project. Let me see what I had for the output in here, just so I can be sure. Yeah, not overriding anything for this right here, so. Cool. Progress. I already added that environment variable. I can't imagine that the directory for this would change, but I can go swap that. See if a redeploy does it. This is why I deploy before I build. I know that's annoying, especially compared to other streamers that do things. Most of them get it working and then they get it working on a server. I need to know it's going to work on the server so I can know why it breaks if it breaks. For what it's worth, I have no intention on touching the commit history here, so feel free to use these git commits as references. Future developers try and debug this and make the Astro experience better. Let's see. Cool. This claims to be production ready. Still server errors. Cannot find markdown remark. I'm gonna go make the config perfectly match my working one, which funny enough was working and then randomly broke when I did an innocent one line change. So I'm a little sus, but one last, just to make sure it's a fully fresh build. Oh, Fred knows what it is, joy. Would you like to share with the class? Is there a markdown component? Oh, I can just delete the Tor component. Delete. 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 So while we have you, Fred, any idea which of the options we should pick for output directory? Should this be the previous /dist, the new /output, or should we leave it on the default /public? That looks like none is the correct answer. Cool. And it's being server generated. See the number changing? We did it. Oh, you can't see the number changing because my picture's closing or covering it. There we go. Ta-da. Yay. I'm gonna grab a soda and let out my cat quick. Be right back. Oh, forgot to unmute. Good to know, Fred. I did not actually know what the enable file system API thing did. I assumed it just like gives you read-write access some amount. I had no idea it does that level of chaos. Very good to know. I love that. We deprecated this, and the thing that we're replacing it with is happening eventually. But yeah, rough. Anyways, now that we have this much working, time to make image gen work. So I'm gonna cheat a tiny bit. I have a project I was working on before. I actually think I might have a URL I don't want to share in here, so let me make sure that's not the case before I so confidently open this repo full of things. Yeah, it does have a thing I don't want to share, so let me change that first to cool. Anyways, what this file does here is it imports Chromium for Lambda, which allows it to find a path if it's running in a Lambda, which it will be, as well as Puppeteer Core. And then I define a browser instance. I create a new page. I set the size. I tell it to go to a URL. I wait for a specific thing to appear. I sleep in order to give it a little bit of wiggle room. And then I generate a screenshot of a PNG of that. And then I serve that as part of this endpoint. So we are going to do the same. Oh, I don't want this. I want this. Oh, this is another different project. Third time's a charm. I'm going to close these others so I don't get mixed up. Cool. We're going to make a new file in here. Image.png.astro. I think that we can just make this a .ts. I remember seeing that in an example in here. There was a, yeah, export function. I don't even want to think about what's causing that right now. Let's just go npm install these guys. And Puppeteer Core. Do we have type defs for any of this? Looks like a no. I'm just going to go read the article. Haha. I remember seeing, yep, here we are. Export function, source pages, API profile. Yeah, that all looks fine. Don't really need this part. And at the moment, we don't care about the request or the response. We don't need the arrow. Getting back asleep doesn't exist. Is this just, oh, return new response? Response. And this is, oof. I can't just JSON stringify this. I think I can, I'm just gonna dump the blob and see what happens for now. Status 200. Is this nested under headers? It's nested under headers. Oh, it's actually the headers. Type. You do need wait until if your network idle it gets hit weirdly for dumb reasons. I guess I'll go allow synthetic default exports. Nope. Why would this be mad when my other project wasn't? Let's see if I have anything else installed. I don't. Maybe the TS config will give me some clues. Yeah, the problem is the one you sent me seems really upset about default imports and exports. Let me kill that, see if it does it. This was written in TypeScript. Not sure why it's being so annoying about this one. Maybe if I do it that way now. Yeah, cool. It's cool with that. Interesting. So the module's fine. I fixed that part. I'm gonna bump this back up to 2022. Make sure it's still good. Still good. If I kill this, it's probably bad again. Yep. Just needed this and to not make other unnecessary changes. all fixed. Yeah, this guy though, new buffer. Yeah, where does the response type come from? Okay. Thank you. I was assuming that would be a node thing since we're creating one, but ew, the Bob needs a type. That makes sense. Less sure now. Oh, string or void or buffer is the result here. It's because it could be a buffer is the problem. Wrapping it with an array feels dirty, but console.log type of, I just don't trust the type this is giving me back of string or void or buffer. That's quite the variety there. Is this really not? Okay, that does it. Okay, that seems to be everything. npm run dev. So this is a readable stream. The type is objects. Great, it's so helpful. It's a buffer. So buffer to blob. This should just work, assuming that this can't take a buffer. It's here. I feel like the buffer should be a readable stream. Shouldn't I be able to pass a buffer directly to that? It's a buffer source. Buffer source is a buffer. I'm just doing it and ignoring the type errors. Haha. Cool. I bet I could even if or type of data. Now, since we've handled the other cases, this has to exist. Ta-da! We now have an image generating. I'm going to lower the resolution because I have that set to really annoying. 1280. This is width, so 720. 1280. Oh, I did have that right mentally. There we go. My cat's screaming at the door. I will be right back. Insisted on being let out. Just to insist on being let in. He didn't do anything when he was out there either. He's just like this. But yeah, now we are generating images on the server. Important next step is obviously deploy it. I'm going to kill the console logs first because those are going to be really annoying. This all looks good to me. Add Chromium Puppeteer and basic image gen. Cool. Next step is to generate this and put it on the page. Killing all of that. Image source equals image.png. Style equals width 100%. I can just write that. That's cool. I probably have to put this in strings. I don't know what the... I've usually used Tailwind whenever I've used Astro prior. So this is still new to me. I don't even need that. Yeah, just HTML. When's the last time I wrote HTML? Guys, I write JSX. I write JSX for a living. Ta-da! Homepage with an image. Also looks like there's some default styles, and I don't like default styles. Let's go CSS Reset since I'm not using Tailwind. I'm probably going to just cave and use Tailwind momentarily, but I want to see how oh yeah, that's really big. Modern CSS Reset. Oh, I just put this in home. I want this in global. I probably don't want home to exist. Haha. We did it. I keep wanting to click that because it's like it's an image. I should be able to click that, but no, this is, or it's not because it's an image. Like I assume this is clickable, but it's actually the generation working properly. Cool. Let's get status. Yay. How are we feeling so far, guys? Thoughts, questions, concerns? I'm just going to idly make this look a little better while I think and read chat, so feel free to post any thoughts. One thought is I really need Prettier. I thought Prettier was supposed to work for this. Might have to go install something else for it. Chad, right now we're working on an image generator server. So what it's doing right now is it opens up a web page on or inside of Chromium on the server, generates an image, and then serves that. So we can use that to programmatically make PNGs. The goal here is to build something that can take like a Twitch URL or something and then generate a cool looking image from that. And now that I'm saying that, I'm realizing I probably, how do I put it? Yeah, I probably going to want Tailwind because I'm going to want to make this look good for the image gen part even. Carbon. The big new thing with Astro is that Astro has server-side rendering now, which to me means Astro can now run my code on Vercel on request. So I can get all my fancy type safety and server deployment stuff without having to build Next.js or build my own build pipe. Yeah, also the Twitch API, Turing, good call there. And Mark, you said git commit -am. No. Adding and committing are two different actions, and they will stay separate. I almost always get add -p, but yeah, not at the moment. What's Astro? Somebody asked. Astro is a newer web development framework. You can think of it almost like an in-between of an 11t and a remix, but it's very focused on site generation and HTML output with the ability to integrate other solutions for more dynamic things. Like with Astro, you're able to introduce like React, Solid, and Vue in the same Astro app. Astro add Tailwind, says Fred. You guys win. Cheers. Let me go clear out this reset as well. Can I just delete both these files? I'm sure this was importing at least one of those. Oh, it's importing both. Now it imports neither. Now we're talking. This is a proper state of a page. Leave that there. Cool. Let's class name equals border W20. Oh. Something JSX. Cool. PG red 200 just to make sure everything's working. Aha. Oh, I might not have my Tailwind autocomplete thing working in here. Trying to remember how I have that enabled. That one works, but the rest aren't. Oh, it's screen. H screen. Cool. That's much closer to what I was expecting. Let's just do the usual gray for the default. Make that a little darker. Flex items center. Justify center. And from here, I can stop. We'll give it a much bigger size. Oh, that's going to be too big. Oh, PX 12. For flow scroll. I'm going to turn on word wrap when I'm streaming. And that fixes that problem. And we'll make sure this has some Y padding as well. It's not going to help the top bottom part. I'm going to not make this width full. We'll do width 50%. Cool. Now this will generate an image and just put it in the middle of the page. Get status, get add. Fine, Mark. because, as you said, I'm doing a lot of git add -a today. That's because we're all reviewing my code together live. For those that don't know, normally when I'm making changes, I like git add -p because I have to sit here and approve or deny every individual change. The problem is I'm doing a lot of node installs, which means you end up approving pretty deep. We're in the D's right now, alphabetically. I don't like bothering. So we're going to git commit, add, and message. For seconds there, you thought I had Google open. That's hilarious. But yeah, git add message, add tailwind, git push. Cool. So I should make sure that works actually. Astro image. Broken image. Really good sign. Really good sign. Let's see why this is crashing. Probably should have checked that part before getting this far. I'll wait for this to deploy and then check it on this one. Cool. Functions. It's the exact same Puppeteer code I am running on my other project that works. It's possible they can't be dev deps, they have to be real deps. Oh no, that can't be the case. I only have dev deps. 10.10, 10.4.0. Why am I on such an old version of Puppeteer, actually? Update Puppeteer. Hopefully this does it. I know the real depths in the next one, but in the Astro project, there are no real depths at all. And theoretically on the server, you should have access to dev depths. It shouldn't matter. Still having the same issue, though. Dependencies. Cut these and cut that. Oh, Mark, the -am doesn't add new files. So using that actually caused me to not include the Tailwind config this whole time accidentally. So yeah, not using that anymore. Let's see if the build is done. Almost. We'll say it's nice the build times are so fast. Still no luck. Verbin. This has to be something that Astro is doing weird in Vercel's like production environment that causes the pathing to not work. That's the only thing I can think here. Oh. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, Fred plus Mark. Let's add this quick. Astro config. I just need this part. Is my YouTube quality bombing? Let me check that quick. I'm using Restream. It's normally pretty reliable. Yeah, I'm seeing 1080p 60. I'm curious if that's just the region you're in, Arik. I'm really sorry. If you're down, check out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Theo. See if that works any better for you. Let's see how this most recent build is doing. Yeah, same error. Grr. Invite SSR external. Okay, I'm reading on my other computer because I didn't think to open the link over here. I'm going to up at the safe side. Good to hear, Arik. Also good to see your other username. It's always strange to me when something that just worked in my prior experience and just works on my machine bombs in such unpredictable ways in production. This has to be something with what it's building. Let me Do I take the time to dig really deep into the build or stuff that comes out here? Or do I give up and go do something else? This is, again, like, I want to take the time or the opportunity here to push really hard on one of my core philosophies. Always be deploying. Once you're at the point where you're putting it on GitHub, you should also be putting it on whatever server you plan to run it on, so you know if it's going to run or not when every commit gets pushed. This would have been so annoying to debug if it happened way later and then I had to reflect and go all the way back to the beginning to see if it ever worked. If I even thought to do that, I would probably have misassumed that the most recent push broke it. Because we're always checking, we always know when things broke, and it makes it way easier to debug. I saw Always Turing asked, isn't this because of Puppeteer? Kind of, not really. It's because we are accessing Puppeteer through node modules that aren't properly being bound and accessed inside of Astro's build pipe. This is probably more Vite plus like Chrome AWS Lambda expectations more than it is any one party. Certainly not Astro's fault. But these types of things, when you build the tool for a platform with a build tool in mind, if you change the platform or the build tool, things start to fall apart. So, okay, Always Turing here. We're just going to do, I didn't want to do this, but we're going to make their next image gen. RM, because their thing does this. So init.tips, copy, paste. Yes. Next image gen. I'm going to open this here, npm install, npm run dev. I already have one running. Close that. Cool. Now I have this guy, a bunch of new things in it. Pages, API, image.png.ts. We shall yoink. I'm just going to yoink these from the package JSON here. npm install, npm. It's upset with one of these being, I'll just manually install both. So Puppeteer core, Chrome, AWS Lambda. Cool. Now I just need to, I actually have a project that has most of these responses written correctly. Making sure I don't accidentally leak a URL I don't want to. Let's, I'm looking at https google.com. Don't save. Wrong project, wrong project. Right project. And here I'm just going to paste this guy. Pretty much same thing. Goes to Google. 1280 by 720. Kill the sleep and the wait. And on the home page, I will, it's not going to have TypeScript or Tailwind by default, so kill the footer and image gen, delete div, I don't even need a div, image source equals dot slash API slash image dot PNG. style equals with get status, get dash a. I will test this after I deploy it. So I'm so confident it will work. Didn't want to actually do that. Let's see. While that's running, that's the Astro one. PM run dev. So typing today. Ta-da. And I can almost guarantee you, once this deploys, it will be totally fine. The Vercel Docker image isn't a Docker image. It's a Lambda. And that Lambda lets you do pretty much whatever you want to it once you understand that. The problem is the builder we're using to provision the files that Lambda is running is being provisioned with things that we don't intend for it to. But Vercel might build inside of a Docker image. Vercel does not run your code in a Docker image. Vercel runs your code on a Lambda. And as such, when I go to nextimagegen.vercel.app, which I am very surprised was available as a vercel.app, this works immediately. Yeah. Sorry, I just took like, what was that? 5-minute tangent to prove that wrong. But yeah, you're incorrect. The Vercel Docker image doesn't exist. And it doesn't matter what is or isn't on the Lambda because you have the ability to install it yourself. So I'm going to go quickly make a repo for this so I can post it as a counter example. Next image gen. Create. Copy. Paste. Oh, that's not going to work there. Yeah, this is now on GitHub if anybody wants to play with it as the alternative. Yeah, this just worked, and sadly the Astro equivalent didn't, which kind of blocks us on the things that I planned to do next, which is annoying and frustrating. Trying to decide if I want to do a weird like interop solution here using Astro and Next in a turbo repo or something, so I have different build pipes for each and more reliable deployment of behaviors and expectations. Or if I just call it because it's almost 5 o'clock and I'm tired. Or if anybody has an idea for something else fun we could build using these technologies or even other technologies, feel free. I also think I promised a Svelte rant at some point. Is the person who asked for that still around? If not, I'll hold it if they are, sure. So yeah, open for questions. What's up, y'all? Svelte rant. Need at least 2 more people to vote in favor of Svelte rant for that to be what I do with my time. Something React Native. That I could do. I would like to have an actual mobile device on the stream because I really like developing with a real mobile device when I'm doing React Native stuff. But that's noted. I definitely should do more RN, especially with the cool things coming up. I actually have a stream booked. Let me figure out when that is. It's booked for like pretty far down the line. That's a lie. It's next Friday. Not this Friday. Next Friday, I'm going to be on the React Native Live podcast with Infinite Red, talking about React Native, type safety, and like building like full stack multi-platform applications with React Native as an essential piece. Chad asked how do I feel about React Native for web. I feel like it should probably be burned with fire, but I understand why it exists, and there's really hard work being done to make it a better method to deploy applications across many platforms with one code base. I don't like it. I'll never, I shouldn't say never. I do not plan to ever use React Native for web, but that could change. So I won't say I won't ever, but yeah. React Native for web is not something I'm personally fond of. I would be very, very, very careful and deliberate if you choose to ship it. It's not a magic bullet solution that makes React Native work on web. It is an architectural decision you have to make for good reason with confidence. I wouldn't just do that one personally. Also going to turn on my badges again because I want them. Is React Native my preferred way to build for mobile? Depends, but almost always yes. If I have the choice and I'm not like making a game or something, I almost always just want to use React Native on mobile. It lets me not change how my brain works as much when I'm moving off of web apps and have things continue to work. There's also a really cool project I don't reference enough. Let me just close a bunch of these tabs. I don't need them. It is Zart. Z-A-R-T. This is a repo by Kat. Alex, he's the creator of TRPC. This is a mono repo built to show you what it looks like to have a single backend that is deployed through Next.js, consumed on the client of Next.js, and consumed by a React Native application, all at the same time. What? 78 viewers? Who? Verola Fox, thank you. Really appreciate the raid. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that and stopping by. Welcome, all the new people. Good to have you all here. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Zart is a dope project because it allows you to... Oh, there y'all are. I was wondering where the messages were going to be. Welcome, Verola. Great to have you guys here. Let me quickly hop in and say hi. Oh, another programmer. Awesome. I'm not going to lie. With the profile picture, I assumed that you might be somebody who's interested in the product that I'm building, but that's really cool. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for the raid. For those who don't know me, I'm Theo. I'm a software engineer that worked at Twitch for about half a decade. I somewhat recently quit to start a company, Ping Labs. We build software for streamers to do guests and collaboration type shows. So if you want to produce a show for somebody else or you want to bring guests into your own show in OBS, Ping Labs is building the best ways to do that. Feel free to check it out at ping.gg. Yeah, thank you guys all so much for stopping by, and thank you again so much for the raid. I did not expect that at all, and it means a ton. Yeah. Back to the React Native rant, though. So Zart gives you the ability to have your backend, your front end, and your mobile app all in the same repo with type safety between them all without any weird layers in between. Because your front end's in TypeScript and Next.js, your backend's in TRPC, Express, Next.js all combined with TypeScript, and your React Native app is in TypeScript as well, which means you can share a client, you can share a backend for your API, and just focus on everything else. My other hot take with like React versus React Native and how you like build the relationship between your web project and your mobile project is that to an extent, the hard part of React and the hard part of like mobile development isn't the part that you're... When I am rebuilding an application that was on web on mobile, the thing I should be putting my time into isn't the logic, it's the UI. It's how do I take the user experience and pare that down to build an equivalent or better mobile specific experience. Ideally, I should be able to share as much logic as possible. A lot of that logic is the UI, or is the API and how you interface with it. So if you can share all of that with like a single custom hooks package that you import on both React and React Native, that cuts down a lot of the code that you would otherwise be rewriting and having to maintain on both sides. My hot take here is that mobile and web are different enough platforms that you should be writing different code for them. I have never been a fan of the idea that mobile or web are subsets of the other and can be treated as a build target for the other platform's focus. Like I'm deep in Next.js. I love this stuff. I would never, ever pretend that one of my Next.js code bases is the right way to build a mobile application. I can build a decent mobile website using these tools, but it's not even great. It's decent. The best mobile websites are going to be built on other platforms that are more focused on the progressive hydration or the progressive enhancement and like, what's the term for progressive web app type stuff. my stack doesn't do that great, and I recognize that. It's not for that. It's for desktop web in particular. As such, I like to build mobile applications with mobile solutions. React Native is the best mobile solution. So from there, how can I share as much code as possible without compromising what the platforms are best for? React Native is the best way to build user interfaces for mobile. React's the best way to build user interfaces for web right now. If I can share the logic, and I can share the API, and I can share the definitions, and I can share the mindset as well between both React Native and React for web, that puts me in a really good position to focus my time on the things that make those platforms special. As such, I don't like one-size-fits-all code bases that magically compile to every platform. I would always prefer to do the platform-specific work on that platform and share as much as I can above that. Hope that clarifies my stance on that a bit. So another really fun question. What do I think of Apollo GraphQL in particular? Apollo is a pretty good project. Let me just go to their website when I rant about it. Apollo is one of the major ways to do GraphQL application development. If you want to have a backend and front end quickly working that use GraphQL and have nice caching behaviors on the client and decent definition behaviors on the backend, it's fine. It's not great. I know that to this day, at least half of the runtime on Twitch, like when you look at the event inspector and see what the JS running is doing, it's cleaning up the Apollo cache. I won't admit, or I won't say whether or not Twitch is using Apollo right. It's at this point hard to argue either way. But Apollo at scale can hurt. It's funny, it shows that there. Apollo in a giant web application can be rough. And a lot of my favorite parts of Apollo were in the client-side DX, especially once hooks came out. The ability to use query and use mutation anywhere and have those give you logical, like, Reacty bits to call with loading states, error states, and type safety. I loved that. What's really cool, though, is we now have those things with other tools like React Query. If you don't already know React Query, I would look into this before deciding on something like Apollo GraphQL or even GraphQL as a whole if it's not like a decided decision yet. The magic with React Query is use query and use mutation. These functions take two things by default: a string, which is the name, and a function, usually an asynchronous function, that does something. In this case, we fetch a thing, and then we return the JSON of it. So what we get back here is a loading state while it's happening, an error state if it fails, and then the data if it doesn't. And this data is the type of whatever this guy returns, because it knows that. It's right there. This lets you effectively take an asynchronous function, a fetch, or anything else you might be doing, and give you synchronous states inside of React without having to build a state machine around it. I find that a lot of people who reach for Apollo, especially in like templates, are reaching for it because they don't want to build the state around their server API and around the server data, because it feels like you have to take that data that was on the server and then build a machine to hydrate it and manage it in your application. You don't. React Query does it. I'd argue it does it a lot better than almost anything else in the industry. It makes it way easier than it's ever been to synchronize your server state with your client state. TK Dodo has a really cool blog post I'm trying to think of the easiest way to find this, probably to scroll through here. There is a React Query, effective React Query. Oh, that's effective React Query keys. Practical React Query. This article. I will share this in chat quick because it is very, very, very good. And I think that application developers, especially those of us that use React, benefit a lot from reading this. It's a great article. Highly recommend. One of the coolest points that this article pushes is that you might not need your current state machine. A lot of state machines are just bad mirrors of server state on client that you now have to maintain and build functionality around. Something like React Query kind of lets you skip that and just focus on the important parts, which are what you do with the data and how you update that data when you need to. So yeah, give this a read. Might help you figure out whether or not you need GraphQL at all. If you do end up deciding you really need GraphQL, URQL by Formidable Labs is a really good solution for a minimal GraphQL client that works great in React.js. Also saw the question about Nest.js. Yeah, I don't think about backend only solutions very often. It's cool that it makes it easy to like write a function, but beyond that, yeah, I'd rather use a tool that's more considerate of the relationship between the backend and the front end. It usually does that by owning some of the front end. I know that Nest.js and Next.js have nothing to do with each other other than the name, but Next.js, in the way I use it, keeps me from having any interest in something like Nest.js. The main important part, I know I rant about this a lot, but we have new people here, is TRPC. If you are new here and you haven't heard about TRPC, quick rant, hopefully you'll love this at least a little bit. It's my favorite thing like ever. TRPC is an exploration of a feeling that a lot of full stack developers were starting to have, myself included, of, hey, my backend's in TypeScript and my frontend's in TypeScript. Why do I keep building new things in between the two? Hi, Miles. Well, so this is my cat, Miles. He likes to jump in and say hi pretty often, especially when I'm talking loudly. He assumes that it's about him. Isn't that right, bud? Hi. He really wants me to pet him. Yeah. Cat interruptions. These happen a lot. Isn't that right, bud? Can't finish a stream without you popping in. Anyways, resetting. TRPC is a backend and frontend solution that explores this idea of, if my backend's in TypeScript and my frontend's in TypeScript, why do I keep writing things in between the two? The solution that it came up with is import the types from your TypeScript backend into your frontend, because they get compiled out because they're just types. But as a developer now, you get to have those type contracts in the client. So in the example here, you see that the field, or that the query hello, I was in the wrong place. The query hello is being called on the client with, it's being hovered there, client.query hello. It expects text in the input. If you change this from text to name, you get a type error on the client immediately because the client is importing the types from that server. So rather than building GraphQL or Swagger and some code gen and all the other options for ways to build this relationship between your backend and your frontend, we now have an inferred contract from the function on your server to the code on your client. This makes like refactoring, working in your code base, just generally the experience of full stack development makes it so much better because you're not thinking as much about that relationship. You're just thinking about the code you're writing. I can actually pull up another project. Miles, you were just on my back. You don't have to like knock a bunch of stuff over. Here's a project I built on stream end of last year, Roundestmon. Quick context, roundest.t3. It's an app that lets you vote on which Pokemon is most round. So you vote rounder, 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 and the rankings, where somebody spammed Dialga because they really wanted Dialga to be the roundest. The reason I show off this project is we're using React Query in it. And, we're using TRPC, which also wraps React Query for the React side of it. So in here, I have the query get Pokemon pair. It has one thing in it, an async resolver that generates the options first and second. This is a super dumb function that generates a random Pokemon, and it makes sure that the second one is different from the first. It's just like a random number generator. So now I have these two numbers. I then grab them from SQL using Prisma. And since Prisma.Pokemon is like a valid field, what I get back here is a Pokemon array. And I know that the type of this or I know the type of this, and I can do things with it now because I know that a Pokemon has an ID, a name, and a sprite URL. I have access to all these types here because I know what Prisma's giving me. Prisma's turning the SQL in our database into a type definition in our client. In this case, the client is the server, so this isn't useful on the user end where it's received. This is where TRPC comes in. Since here I return first Pokemon and second Pokemon, these both are now of the Pokemon type that comes from Prisma. And as a result, on client, when I trpc.useQuery get Pokemon pair, the type of this is correct. It's either first Pokemon and second Pokemon, or it's undefined because it doesn't come through yet. We also get loading state and a function to refetch, all baked in here because that's coming from React query. Now I have this function, this hook, that gives me the data, gives me the loading state, and gives me a refetch. From here, I can return different things based on the different states. So if Pokemon pair exists, then I return the pair. If it doesn't, I return the rings, which is my loading filler image. I should have named it loading or something, but I was lazy. And it switches which of these two it loads, or is in the DOM, based on whether or not Pokemon pair exists. So if I go back in here, and instead of first Pokemon, I rename this to zeroth. Typing's hard. Pokemon. You'll see even just when I started typing, we're getting an error in this other file because this guy expects first Pokemon to exist, and it doesn't anymore. Since I renamed this in my server, source/backend, this is an API, just renaming this is enough to break the client. And if I rename it correctly, you'll see the error goes away. Error, error gone. Error, error gone. There is not another full stack framework in the world that does that without a shitload of code generation to do it, or no actual control of what the client is doing as a result. The magic here is the actual type definition from our backend is being used to give us a source of truth on the client. And the power there is hard to understate. It makes moving through your code base and making full stack changes so much faster. So yeah, this is why I don't find myself using GraphQL too often anymore. I tend to write my backends in TypeScript, and I always write my clients in TypeScript. So as a result, having something in between the two is really nice. Somebody asked if the Pokemon repo is public. It is. If you go to the website roundus.t3, go to About, public GitHub repo is here. There's also I need to change that link to be the YouTube version of that. Actually, if anybody wants to make a pull request on my repo, switch this to the YouTube URL. I'll even share it in chat for y'all. Your channel, videos, this guy. Back when my hair was long. So, yeah. If anybody would like... Oh, why did that not share on Twitch? Because it probably thinks I'm a bot. Cool. Sent that on Twitch too. Chat asked, does TRPC act like your backend, or do you need another technology to do your backend stuff? Really good question. The way TRPC works is it expects you to deploy it through another backend. So in this project, I'm using Next.js. So in Next.js, you can define an API endpoint, like server code that runs when you call it, by putting a function inside of pages/API. So in this case, we have pages API TRPC, which uses the TRPC provided next adapter, and I export default TRPC next.create next API handler with my app router, which I defined. This is the file I had open before. It's trpc.router and then a bunch of .queries. Well, one .query, one .mutation. And I use that as my router. I create an empty context. I don't need a context here. And I'm done. This is the backend for my TRPC. You could also deploy it through Express. You can deploy it through a bunch of other things. Somebody's working on an adapter for Remix for TRPC. That should be ready pretty soon. Will these sorts of libraries play nicely with React Suspense? Another very good question. So this sort of library is interesting because TRPC isn't doing anything special on client. beyond wrapping React query. So TRPC React tells you even go to the React query docs, because the whole thing is wrapping React query. The source code for TRPC/React is like 50 to 80 lines of code of boilerplate around React query and weird imports and exports to make it play nice with TRPC. Generally, though, as long as React query gets updated to support these new things, TRPC will be fine. And React query will be there very fast. Pull request got up really quick. Great work, Lawrence. Let me approve and merge. Only reason it didn't deploy is it's my project and he's not authorized to do the deployment. Yeah, really quick on that one. I hope it's a Rickroll too. If you just got me that way, I'm going to be so proud. Do I check it for the spoiler or do I wait for the deploy? I check it for the spoiler. Good. You did the right thing, not the funny thing, and I can respect that. My fans are too kind. Y'all need to bully me more. Oh, I also made the analytics public. I forgot about that. Anybody can go look at the analytics for Roundest, and you can see when I went viral on YouTube, it blew up, and it basically has been dead since. Please don't tear anything down, Miles. I had a few other good questions people asked that I wanted to do rants about. I'm scrolling back in chat to find the good one somebody asked. I know that the Svelte rant is still overdue. Oh, somebody asked about the plan for the PrimeGen debate. No plan in particular yet. We have a lot of opinions that don't necessarily agree. I think he gives TypeScript too much shit, and I think he likes Vim too much. I like setting things up in a way where my productivity can effectively scale across a team once that's necessary. I'm kicking out my cat. 1 second. Buddy, please stop knocking things down. Sorry about that. Yeah. The PrimeGen debate, I should pull this up actually. Yeah, PrimeGen and I have been chatting back and forth for a while now because it's known that we're both loud, full of hot takes, and most importantly, don't agree on everything, which means it'll be really fun. Yeah. He's a big Vim user. He's a hardcore like Rust and recently Golang developer focused on making the best native solutions possible for scaling large enterprise applications. Just trying to keep things from breaking. I think we have very different like bottom line goals to an extent, and as a result, a lot of our opinions conflict. But I'm very excited to see like live which ones don't and what middle ground we can reach, because I have a feeling we agree more than either of us think we do, and we're going to disagree about really stupid shit. So, should be fun. Yeah, this will be on Friday at a little past noon, so be there for that. He also forgot to put the word Friday in the announcement, so classic. Let me make sure I retweet this so people know this is happening. But yeah, that should be fun. What's next? Did I have other rants on deck? Do y'all really want the Svelte rant? You probably don't, but I want the Svelte rant. Cool. One sip of my soda before this one. Svelte kickstarted a lot of very important conversations. Rich Harris is one of the most important web developers in the software industry. Oh, yo, Taurus, happy that you made it all the way to me through that. Makes not a lot, but enough sense. Good to have you here. Yeah. Svelte started as the response to React. So how much history do I want to give here? I am going to make sure I don't have anything important in here quick. I'm just going to make a new Excalibur plus scene quick. Cool. So we're going to make a quick timeline. I guess that this is the way that you normally think of a timeline. Web exists. And we'll put current year. And this is going to be a very rudimentary timeline of web technologies. I'm going to miss a lot of things, and don't be mad that I missed the thing you like, because we're going in knowing that I'm going to miss a lot of things. Somewhere around here, I'll just start here. The Jquery Revolution. Jquery was very important because it made it so your JavaScript could do things without constant misery. It made it way easier to select things on the website, change them, read them, write them, copy them, do all the things you needed to make a dynamic application on the web. I'm just reminded about this R being capitalized. So the Jquery Revolution happened. The thing about Jquery is it didn't have much in terms of opinions for how developers should do things. It was mostly a method to query the DOM and make changes to it. It's like, I want to access the third div with this class name, and it will give that to you easily. It'll even let you update it pretty easily or add an on-click to it. But it does not describe UIs. Jquery is much more focused on letting you update your UI in a world where that thought was still new. Soon after this, not soon after, a while after, let's see, when did Jquery come out? 2006. Cool. I'll add this below. Now let's figure out, when did Angular come out? Angular did not get released in 2016. Angular 1.0 was released. Oh, Angular isn't AngularJS. AngularJS was 2010. And the Red Wedding was 2016. That makes sense. So, yeah, there was Ajax. Ajax and Jquery don't necessarily... I guess they kind of compete. Ajax is what unlocked a lot of these things. I would say that Ajax is part of web existing. Like should say web applications became somewhat possible is what I would put at the beginning here. But yeah, Jquery exists, and then Angular enables app dev and more. The big thing Angular did was everything. AngularJS release. I don't know if I can find like the original announcement. All right. HTML is great for declaring static documents, but it falters when we try to use it for declaring dynamic views in web apps. AngularJS lets you extend your HTML vocabulary for your application. The goal of Angular was take over your app with a single JavaScript file that then allows you to build everything you ever might want. So with it comes a controller, a model, and a view, like the way that we had broken up native applications for a long time now. The MVC model was thrown into the browser because we didn't have anything better yet. The concept was make a model, make a way to render it, and then a controller that binds data and moves things around between it. Because that's what we did. That's how we did things. There was a very vague idea of a component that they touch on in here. Angular.module components.directive with a template, a replace Boolean, requirements, links. This was not real components. This was an early way to apply MVC mindsets and build full applications in the browser. The problem with Angular was it did way too much. And the patterns it was prescribing were old. They were old and working, but they were old. Because of this, how do I put it? This is a hard word to explain. Because these patterns were old and they weren't working, we ended up getting a lot of pushback from other new frameworks and solutions, and one in particular was very successful. React.js release date. 2013. Timeline-wise, that makes a ton of sense. React is a thing now. This is 2013. So the big difference between React and Angular was that Angular did everything. It had very strong assertions around the way you built the full application. React was a lot more like jQuery in the we're a way to update the DOM sense. That's all React did. It would take in state, it would give you back a UI. And if your state changes, it would update that UI pretty quickly. But the real magic of React was how good of a job it did uniquely at allowing developers to mentally decouple state and UI meaningfully enough to construct applications at scale. Big part of that was the idea of the component model, where every piece of your application is box that is isolated and can be composed and use other boxes relatively trivially. So I showed you there, Angular had some vague idea of components, but React really gave you the strong composition of, how do I put it? Oh, thank you, Michael, for the PR. I really appreciate that. But React heavily encouraged building composable parts to make applications with. And I firmly believe that composition mindset was so essential to React's success, because with it came an opportunity for the community to fill the things it didn't do. So React did components. It didn't do state yet. So the community got to build their own state models, things like Redux, things like Zustand nowadays, MobX, and XState recently even. Those new solutions were built because React kind of chose to not solve those problems. And now the community can innovate and build new solutions around them. And after years of that innovation, I think that React Hooks was 2018. Let me just confirm that. Yep, 2018. React Hooks redefine state. This was 2018. So the cool thing with React Hooks is it took that mindset around composable DOM pieces with components and made the state around them even more composable as well. The idea of a custom hook, which is a shared, reusable piece of stateful logic that can be shared between multiple components in one application or even multiple applications, was incredibly powerful, and it kickstarted another step up in the quality and amount of libraries focused on React. React Hooks gave developers, in particular like library devs, a unique ability to build, how do I put it? React Hooks are why things like React Query can exist. They provide a really good entry point for entering, exiting, and making changes to the React lifecycle. And that power was so cool, and it enabled yet another huge wave of innovation. Instead of getting like component libraries like Material UI, we started seeing way cooler things like React Query, like Zustand, like React 3 Fiber even came from the hooks revolution and the power that came with it. You might have noticed I put React in here twice and nothing else. That's because I firmly believe primitives are what allow for lots of innovation to occur. The primitives that React exposed, both through the component model and then later on through the hooks model, allowed for the community to innovate crazy amounts without having to change frameworks. And the reason that it feels like React stuck around a lot longer than other things is because React doesn't need to be replaced because of its other dependencies. Angular had so many bad assumptions baked in that they effectively had to rewrite it for version 2.0. Angular 2.0, which isn't AngularJS, they full on renamed it when they moved to Angular and TypeScript with V2. It was referred to as the Red Wedding because of how hard they left behind the users of the older versions, because they had admitted, we did a lot of this wrong and we have to start from scratch. We've never had that level of exodus in the React community because they don't own everything. They don't have to rebuild everything when they make changes. A lot of that is them working their butts off for backwards compatibility. They've done crazy things there. But a lot of it's the more modular nature of React itself and the ability to add and remove pieces that others made at will. React doesn't have an animation library. React doesn't have a router. React doesn't have much for state management. That's changed a bit over time, but not a lot. React doesn't do a lot of the things we need to build applications. React doesn't even have a builder. Create React App's a community thing. Probably should be burned, but that's a whole separate rant. React gave us really good primitives to build with. And here's where we talk about Svelte. One of the other ways I could frame this is 2 bars where the left is does everything and the right is does one thing. The revolution started with somebody said Ajax. Ajax does a bunch of things. Then we got Jquery, which does one thing. And we got Angular, which goes really far this way. And then we got React, which I'd argue is even further this way than Jquery. And Svelte, I would say, is like right up on this line, where Svelte's effectively asserting that React pulled us too far in this direction, not in the it does one thing sense, but in the it's being used for things it shouldn't be, and it's not fast for other things sense. Like if you want to build really complex animations in React, you're in for a rough time because React wasn't built with animations in mind. It was explicitly built for those problems to be solved by the community. And yeah, it's good point with the 3-4 year gaps, Micaiah. That's a really good point I actually didn't think of until you mentioned it. It's like 3 to 4 gaps. That's when we start to see we see a big jump every once in a while. Yeah. As Dust implied here, React does its one thing really well, which is stupid updates based on state changes. When your state changes, it blows out the virtual DOM, it rewrites it, it compares it against the real DOM, and it updates things if it needs to. It means that it's running a lot of code, but that code runs really fast, and it doesn't make changes to the DOM when it doesn't need to. So it's relatively efficient. I would say React's efficiency in terms of what it does and how fast of React code you can write, like 7 out of 10 with a theoretical perfect 10 out of 10. Yeah, React does this very well. I think it gets a lot of shit it doesn't deserve because React is so good that it enables us to do bad things with it and not notice because it's so fast. Like when you write bad React code, it takes longer to notice because React does such a good job of powering through. You really need to be in the network tab and in the performance tab to see React failing you. Anyways, Rich Harris was working at, I believe, New York Times at the time. And he wanted to do crazy data visualization with lots of animations, fade ins, fade outs, transforms on scroll, resize events, triggering crazy stuff. And React doesn't care and doesn't enable that great. Because React was built to take in a state and give you a DOM really efficiently. It's not as concerned about the update patterns and the unique behaviors you want to encode into those, as well as the madness that is a giant piece of static data, like a 20 megabyte JSON file full of points, and then plotting that. React is not great for those things because React was built for updates to be cheap. And if you're not updating, React is not worth that investment. It's not going to solve you problems. It's probably going to introduce some. As such, he swung real hard the other way, both in the I want something where these behaviors are bound close to the render layer, and also the I don't trust anyone else to build these integrations, so we're going to build them ourselves way. Svelte has its own build tool set with SvelteKit. Svelte has its own animation layer. Svelte has its own storage system and state management libraries. Svelte has its own router. Svelte has its own SSR process. Svelte has its own image rendering systems now. Svelte has its own 3JS bindings as of recently. Svelte tries really hard to do everything. And I don't think that's the right answer. And it hurts to say that because I love Rich and I'm really pumped with the things he's doing. And I think he's driving important innovation and change in the industry. But the result of an all-in-one solution like this is it can only be as good as what we know when we build it and as the people who are building it. Because they're going to fight back on innovation because innovation means more work for them. Like TRPC is a great example of a new trend that's catching on. It recently overtook, NPM popularity graph. No, there's a thing that lets you, NPM trends. Let's take a look at, I guess that's not going to do it, at TRPC server. So you can see TRPC is doing quite well right now. Let's compare that to, let's see, Redwood NPM. I'm just going to find like the, whatever they recommend. I guess create Redwood. That's not going to be the best example. Does this install any depths that are really common? At Redwood.js core. Cool. That sounds like what I'm looking for. At Redwood.js core. Okay, there it goes. Cool. So you can see Redwood. We can see there. Wait, that wasn't their announcement. Interesting. Oh, I know a fun one. Remix. What's the remix package? Remix run. Get started. Can I? Okay, remix packages. I guess that it would probably always need this, so we'll use that. If you look at that, it looks like TRPC is actually about to beat Remix, which is pretty funny. Remix run remix, people are saying. Remix run. There's 6 months. Yeah, it looks like remix run remix doesn't work. I'll just keep this URL for now. But yeah, the interesting thing here is TRPC is catching on. The reason I brought this up is there's a noticeable trend right now in the backend front-end interop, as well as a trend in like progressive hydration and render patterns on client. I am concerned that Svelte is necessarily going to miss out on a lot of these trends because Rich Harris can't keep up with all of them and he can't be on top of these things as they change. Whereas React has consistently proven itself to be a great platform for these innovations because it gives us the base pieces that we're already familiar with to build around and into to try out these new things. Svelte can only be as good as the Svelte team. And the Svelte team is small. It's no longer just Rich. It was for a while. He wrote a great article about how hard it was for him to scale himself and the problems it was introducing. And he's been so focused on SvelteKit that Svelte itself has not been getting the updates and the love that it needs to succeed. I don't think these all-in-one solutions are destined for long-term success. Saw a question about Remix. Remix is fine. It's another way of doing progressive, like, I shouldn't say progressive. It's another way of rendering applications on the server using React. It's fine. Looks like more React developers had a Christmas break holiday. I will open this up quick. It's actually very interesting, yeah. I think it still goes down to about half. So 1.5 to 2.8 mil, where this was 13.6 to 7.6 mil. It's actually like a similar ratio. Yeah. I think that Remix is going to become the new React router rather than the new Next. Next.js was great for people who wanted to, from scratch, build something better. Remix is going to take over on two sides. I think it's going to take over on the knitting a project without changing my mindset from React and quickly adding a post and a get to a route. Remix will be great for that, and it'll be used a lot for that. And I think migrating old Create React app and like React router heavy applications over to modern SSR patterns, Remix will be a pretty good way to bridge that gap and help people move over, whereas Next doesn't really care to help you there. Yeah. React, somebody mentioned React router is already becoming client-side only Remix. Yeah, very much so. Darren asked, what are my opinions on Vue? Vue is good. I think that Evan U is busy with other things, and Vue isn't innovating particularly quickly as a result. Vite is great. Nuxt is pretty cool. There's a lot of innovation over in the Vue world. On top of that, Vue's documentation, especially for non-English languages, is significantly better than React's was until recently. And as a result of that, it's taken a foothold in the East and in Asian countries that React will probably never overcome, simply due to how much more they cared from the start. And that does mean a lot. Like the new beta React docs still aren't translated in other languages, which sucks because they're phenomenal. Best in class documentation that is 80% done on the onboarding side and like 10% done otherwise for the API side. And it's only in English. I've seen Capacitor.js get mentioned a few times now. I'm not sure if it's always the same person or not. Cross-platform apps with web technology. Already don't trust it. Does it wrap web apps? Does it render native? Who's using it? Bring your own web. Oh, this is the thing that lets you use like other web like frameworks for native apps. React Native took a decade to get usable. And that was with Facebook pissing billions of dollars into it. I am personally not interested in betting on someone else's solution here. I am going to stick with React Native because it works and it solves these problems for us already. Yeah, I'll look more into new native solutions when I see more people using them. I tried the Flutter thing, and it was one of the worst developer experiences I've had in my life, not just because it was bad to use and work with, but because the community is utter fucking toxic shit and is a useless set of people. The Flutter community has no interest in quality software. It's apparent. And I don't want that again. So I'm eternally skeptical. Let's call .dev. Sensible. Oh, I did see this got like shared earlier. New way to write like text components inside of your applications. Cool. I don't do a lot of code editors or text editors in my apps right now. But yeah, this seems cool. If you're building an app that lets you edit text, happy that there's better ways to do it instead of everybody hacking Monaco.js over and over again. Thank you for the resub, Leia. Really appreciate that. Oh, Xamarin. What's the name of the Xamarin dude? I always forget his name. I follow him, then he says something incredibly stupid on Twitter, and I unfollow him because I'm strict about that. Yeah. I hope that this helps frame how I think of these things, the like does one thing versus does everything. I'll put a few more things in here. One of the reasons I'm really hyped on Solid is it's firmly in this area. The other way I almost want to frame this is Angular and React were like the relationship there was very clear, where React was the response to Angular, because Angular baked in everything and made bad assumptions about some of those things. So React chose to bake in nothing and be really certain about the things they were shipping. Svelte flipped the other way, where, hey, React isn't doing some of the things I need it to. I got to start from the beginning if I want to fix that. And then Solid said, wait, you don't need that to have performant code, though. I can prove it. Solid had a few theses when it was built that I really liked that have proven out over time. The first one is that observable patterns are a better and more performant way to update state in your application than a virtual DOM. There's a strong belief amongst Ryan and his crew that virtual DOMs are not a necessary abstraction for performance, and they often hurt more than they help. There was a long debate between React 3 Fibers lead developer Paul Henschel and Ryan from the Solid team about what it took to make performant DOM applications, especially 3D ones. And it was a very interesting back and forth I learned a lot from. Solid had the thesis, of course, that observable patterns baked into the framework could and would be more performant than virtual DOMs, which they proved. Solid's still the fastest web framework right now, period. The other thesis was that JSX has value and isn't all bad. And a simple Babel transform can make JSX a really good developer experience that also performs well for users. I really like JSX. I feel like it gets a lot of undeserved shit because it's HTML in your JavaScript or whatever. Solid's patterns here, really, in my opinion, like if you hate React, I highly recommend exploring Solid, because it will force you to reflect on what you hate about React. Is it the JSX? Is it the state patterns? Is it the component management? Is it React being for the web? Solid does enough of the parts really well, indifferently enough, that I've found learning it helps React developers better understand their own relationship with React, as well as React haters, of course. Solid's really cool. Yeah, Codephilia mentioned that, or Codephobia mentioned that you didn't know Solid used observables. They're not the most traditional they're pretty traditional observables. The patterns are really cool. If I go to create signal, for example, has an initial value and options that you can pass it. So when you use it, create signal, you get, similar to React with hooks, count and set count, or in this case, ready and set ready. The big difference is count isn't 0. Count is a function that you have to call to get 0 out of it. So when you call it somewhere, so current count is reactive now, and this code will rerun when this changes. Doubled count will as well. The goal here is you can pass a observable from a high up component down really far to a low one, or vice versa. And the only things that will update are the things that call the observable, not the things that pass it. And that really changes how you think about these things. The other thing you'll notice is none of these are being called inside of components. They just kind of exist. And that's because the life cycle exists outside of these definitions. Observables are observables. They have their own life cycles. As a result, you can conditionally call different signals, effects, memos, resources, whatever you're using inside of Solid here. You don't have to worry about hook rules. You have to worry about a lot of those things because of the core patterns. Each signal is global in the sense that anything can consume it. This is the two-way binding problem, though. This is one of the things that I think makes React so appealing and also so successful, is you don't think about these things in React. You have a state, and then you update the state, and then things change, generally speaking. And in Solid, you have to think a lot more about the relationship between these things, like who's updating what and when, what's bound to this, what isn't bound to this. React, everything's bound to everything below it, effectively. Well, sorry, everything's bound to everything above it, which is good in the sense you don't have to think as much, but it's bad in the sense that you got a lot more work to do. Naming's not going to be the problem with the global here, because you don't it's global in the sense that anything can call it. It's not global in the sense that it exists in global and you call it from there. Like if I have a folder that I import button count from, and that exports a signal in it, and then I import that in 5 places, you still have to import it to have it. It still has to come from somewhere. It's global in that if it updates, everything gets the update as long as it was instantiated at the same level. But it's not global in the sense that it magically becomes this name that I'm calling other places. Like I don't call window.state or global.state. But this is also like React has infected our brains, because as soon as it's not from here down, it's now global. That's the only 2 things that exist in React. It's like here down via context or like prop drilling, or global. There is a big space in between those 2 that other frameworks are exploring here. Recoil's a shit show. I could go on a whole rant about that one. I will spare you the details and just tell you use Jodi. There's a reason that the creators of Jodi did a conference or a long talk at ReactConf, and nobody from the Recoil team did. Jodi is a much better example of multi-direction state binding and state management in React. If you're looking for atomic state in React and ways to update it multiple places, please use Jodi. Don't touch Recoil. It's not being taken care of right now. Cool. I'm tired. Adam has some good clips to edit here. I feel bad for him, both because he's got a real job now and because I'm going to be annoying him a lot about these. Ooh, a book about micro state management in React. Interesting. Oh, I'm not buying a book about React. Never mind. Anytime. Let's figure out who we're rating. Oh, the book's by Daishi? Okay, if the book's by Daishi, that's worth reading. I'll put that on the screen. Guess Daishi wrote a book about web dev, or about state management. He's really good. Abdu, I already talked about Vue. Scroll back a bit. It's cool if you already know it. Don't learn it if you haven't already. It's not a new thing. It's not it'll get you some old jobs that need to get filled, but it's not gonna bring you much joy in the process anymore. Let's go to software in game development. Find see if there's anybody I know. Wow, we're near the top of the directory. Good work, guys. Saw that one raid, so thank you for that one raid. If any of y'all see somebody you recognize, then let me know, and I can go raid them. Otherwise, I'm just going to go pick someone. Tell you somebody who hasn't been live for too long so they don't immediately bounce. Not CM. How about Strager? What do we got here? That's really deep windows. I don't want to make you guys go that deep. Making my own programming language. It's really scary. Oh wait, Dan Salvato's a legend. Yeah, legendary game dev and Frankerface C dev here. Decisions made. We're rating Dan. Let him know I sent you. Be polite. Don't make me look bad. Sending y'all there. Don't embarrass me. Thank you guys as always. It's been an awesome stream. Really pumped to be doing code streams again. Thanks again for stopping by. I think I just triggered the raid. There we go. Cool. Raid is starting now. Let's go hop over there. Thanks again, y'all. See you guys next week. Oh, actually, one more. Friday. We're going live Friday at noon. Make sure you're there for that. Noon PST. It'll be a really fun stream. Peace, y'all. Raid time.